Wonderful. So welcome to the first of season 7 community meetings with a focus on the delegates. And we invite community members to be able to show up to these meetings and have a voice and participate as well. This is the agenda for today. I'm just going to take us through this real quick. We're going to talk about some moderation process. We want to talk about the working groups and the interest of the level 1 delegates. And we've got a section in this document that we can look at. We want to talk about this idea of percentage of distribution by working group as point 3. Number 4, the categories of projects that we are thinking about maybe being involved with as funding or supporting. And that's, again, part of an open discussion with everyone in the group. And then the last few points, technical issues during the election that we need to be aware of. BioWire will interview the chief delegates. That's been added to this agenda, and then a discussion, right, for everyone here. So let's take it one at a time, see how quickly, succinctly we can go through, and then we can start to open it up to discussion, Q&A, and then round off with just a round robin conversation at the end of it. So first of all, moderation process. Mo, do you have some thoughts that you wanted to share on that particular one for now?
Sure. Thanks, Gabriel. Initially, I think we're all aware that we have moderation issues in the community. These have been discussed in terms of the Eden members channel and also the Eden on EOS open channel to the rest of the community in the world, and as well as the calls that we're on. So we need to come up with a moderation policy where the moderators can both moderate on the calls and have a standard for that, as well as a way for moderators and admins on our Telegram channels to be able to moderate each group accordingly. This has been discussed also in terms of, do we want this conversation to happen in a governance channel, or do we want the comms and media group to take control of that conversation? I don't know if you guys wanted me to share my opinions on these issues as of right now, or do you guys want to kind of go back and forth and discuss it a little bit more on where the community stands on that?
The question comes at the end. Now we are just presenting the things, and we have 4 minutes for this one.
Well, then initially, yes, that's where what the situation is in terms of moderation and what needs to be discussed. Hopefully, we can get that done within this week. I would hope that we have standing circles and working groups that can start addressing these issues.
Cool. So that's point 1. We can come back to that at the end in discussion, or we need to move that to the working groups and start to add ideas for how to make that happen. So I think I'm going to kick off number 2 on the agenda, working groups and asking for interests of the level 1s. To do that, I'm going to take you through this document real quick, just so it's on the video and it's recorded, and be sure that it's in everyone's attention. So this is the planning document. I shared the link. This is not a final approach. All of the details are still to be refined, but the point of this document is to bring all of our attention to the same space so that we're collaborating, we're working together, we're providing feedback. It's not my document, it's not chief delegate's document, it's our document to contribute to. So I put in a real quick gist of an intro to just this document. This is not replacing the bylaws or the purpose paper. This is a concept that came out of the workshops that we did in the previous months or weeks. And I added just yesterday this distinction between, as an ecosystem, all these layers of the EOS ecosystem, we can have, we've got Eden on EOS, and on top of what we're building as a foundation, we might inspire additional Edens to come into fruition. And we may be producing private goods and public goods, spanning the works, that we're not trying to exclude public goods from our consideration. That was the point of this little adjustment. So then the document is any comments, feel free to interrupt me. I love being interrupted. So go for it. If there's a question, if there's anything to clarify, if there's a particular whatever challenge, then feel free to raise it. Maybe we'll just park it for the end of the conversation. Maybe we'll say, good thing. Let's come back to that in due course on the channels or whatever. But at least I'm really keen just to get the thoughts flowing from everyone. So you're not just like listening to me, because I'm just part of this conversation, just like anyone else. So we've split the document into these three groups. First section, sorry, chief delegates. We're going to chief delegates. When we meet, we will update these notes in brief. So there's visibility of generally what we're, and for ourselves to remember the steps that we're taking and the progress that we're making as well. Then we've got a breakdown, and we're still working on this. I still want to think about what I added, but this is to try and communicate. These are the thoughts, the top of mind thoughts from the chief delegate's individual perspective, because we're different people, we have different ideas. And so the community can see this kind of a different way of approaching things. Then we're trying to get to some level of mutual goals between the chief delegate's perspective, and this is what this table is supposed to be. And we're still, again, working on this in the coming, for the term. I added this to try and suggest that we have a journey to take people through. And the journey is awareness of Eden on EOS as an opportunity for themselves, as a community that exists, as something that they can learn from or take from, something that's visible in the world. From that awareness, maybe we acquire them. It's like a marketing kind of language. We acquire them as a member of our community. So what is that onboarding process that they need to go through? And to me, there seems to be a lack of clarity in that. Documentation needs to be updated. Branding is part of the awareness and the acquisition, the steps that people go through, the benefits that they see, the reasons that they might want to join our experiment here. We need to be able to present that as part of this overall journey. Then we've got the activation and revenue. So this is perhaps where people are joining working groups in order to get funded for themselves, and participating in bringing in new funding, or bringing in new projects, or bringing in new members, or whatever it is. That's the activation and revenue bit. Retention is that we create an environment that we all want to stick around in. There are concerns about, everyone, not everyone, but there are lots of different ideas that we're trying to add into the mix. And we want to be able to achieve very good goals while respecting and honoring and including the interests and agendas of as many quality members as we can. So in terms of retention, we want to stop scaring people away because they don't like the environment, they don't like the goals, they don't like the values, they're scared about legal liabilities. Whatever that stuff is, that's the retention aspect in this table. Then we've got referral, which again is straight to the point of growing the membership that we represent. We're proud to be members of the community, and the members themselves are driving the acquisition or the attraction of new members into the community. So hopefully this helps give us a bit of a guide rails of, generally speaking, this is hopefully not disagreeable. If there are things here that we disagree with, then this document is commentable. In fact, it's editable for the time being. But if you guys want to come in there and add some additional stuff, I've missed out a bunch of stuff. It was just a quick summary. A lot of you have got a lot of experience with this kind of thing, product development or marketing or branding or whatever. We need to put our community interests in here. And then we've got the general approach and the assumptions and risks. So this, again, was just a very early beginning to this section of the this little table. So out of the goals, this is what the chief delegates see as the general approach, which so far we've got sponsor working groups, curate stakeholder inputs for consensus making, and move towards the purpose paper's vision in a nutshell. And we also want to collect these assumptions and the risks. What are the assumptions that we're making? What are the risks that we might be taking? And that's collective effort to contribute so that we as a community can mitigate the risks, solve the risks, find solutions, unravel the assumptions that we're making so we can all do a better job of what we're supposed to be doing as Eden on EOS. So that's section 1. I've got 1 minute left.
1 minute left, yeah. You see the Zoom, yeah.
So this is section 2 now. This is for the L1 delegates. We've just done the agenda. We've got the screenshot of all of the L1 delegates, and we here have a table that a few people have started to fill in. The idea is L1 delegates are appointed in the first round to represent the interests and the values and the concerns and goals, whatever, of the people in the round 1 group. So you guys are taking your own views and the reason that you got elected and appointed to L1 delegate and adding these into this table. And then we as a community can take all of that into account. So hopefully that makes sense. Please use at least this bit of the document, add in what you guys see as important considerations. It can be detailed, it can be high level. We just want to get the conversation going to be inclusive with the ideas. Then section 3 will be on the working groups. And this is yet to form, and this is part of the longer conversation. But here we're looking at dividing the groups into any member can be a contributor. We want to list the skills and interests from an individual member perspective. And then as the next part, when we actually formalize the working groups and you guys are gathering into groups, then you're going to be making your commitments based on the interests and skills that you have, based on what you decide you want to commit to in terms of what the working group does. So hopefully that conveys enough of what this document is about. Very happy to take all of the questions in the world. We can do that towards the end of this call if we've got a bit of time, or in the Telegram channels as well. All right, let's jump back up to the next. Any key questions on that, or we'll move on to the next agenda item?
Just little remark then that will help the CD to approve the appointments, because that's the CDs that will then take all that in account and approve the appointment that's written here into the agenda.
Yeah,
okay.
maybe Mo can help clarify how that looks. But maybe this is agenda point number 3, percentage of distribution by working group. Mo, do you want to kick us off with that one?
The purpose paper, and I'm going to go over what the requirements and the responsibilities are for the circle lead real quick before we get into what the actual fund distributions are, so that we have a little bit of perspective on why funds are being allocated the way that they are. So the requirements are to be a verified member, meaning that they've participated in at least one of the last 4 elections. Be an active circle participant. So at this point, we can't really expect everyone to have already participated in a circle, but we want to get people already in that culture of being active in the circles if in the future they want to be leads. So we're all learning here. This is all trial and error at this point. So this is where we get people habituated to being part of these environments. 3, if a new circle, then having been appointed by 2/3 consensus of chief delegates. So that's what we were speaking about earlier, what Gabriel pointed to. We'd like to see intent from the delegates primarily as to who would like to take roles as leads in the circles. That's who we're prioritizing first. And we'd like to hear from the delegates and if they're interested in taking on those responsibilities. If there's no delegate for a circle that wants to take that on, we'll be happy to look into having members take on those responsibilities as well. If an existing circle, then having been elected in first meeting of new term. So moving forward, we're hoping that these circles will be maintained, will continue to be funded, and once a new term starts, then the first meeting that they have is to elect a lead from that circle. So at that point, delegate or chief delegates will no longer be appointing leads, but they'll be coming out from the circles at this point in time. And in the future, whenever it's a new circle that's being started, or the chief delegates are initiating, then they're taking that responsibility of finding someone that's adequate to fill that role. Responsibilities include, but are not limited to, coordinate with chief delegates, and other circle leads. Establish initial election to elect secretary and organizer. So the secretary and organizer will be elected roles in the circles. If existing circle, the existing lead is responsible for attending the first meeting of the new term, transferring proprietary assets. Establish priorities, direction, and establish the working strategy. Meeting agenda. Relay information back to the circle. Offer tasks to be accomplished. Source responsibilities from members. So these are also key responsibilities for the lead, where they'll be interacting with the members of the circle and asking them what do they think needs to get done, and formulating proposals for the chief delegates. Follow up with members.
Left.
I'm gonna need a little bit more than that. I can tell you that now. Follow up with members on the responsibilities. Taking on ownership of any proprietary assets of Eden On EOS from previous lead. Handing over any proprietary assets of Eden On EOS to the newly elected lead. Be at least one signer of an MSIG of a circle's account and direct funding as required through consensus. So those are the lead's responsibilities. I'm going to let you guys go ahead at this point and look through the purpose paper then and see what the secretary's responsibilities are. They're also relatively important, as well as the organizer. So they're taking on more responsibilities than any average member through the course of the week, from meeting to meeting, organizing and being attentive to what needs to happen. As questions have been asked in terms of the actual fund distribution, can you guys see that screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna make this document also public so that people can actually look at this and see exactly what the formulas are, or play around with the numbers if they need to, and see how it tallies up. So basically, this is the first scenario, and in terms of a group of 5 members. If it's 5 members only, this is what the distribution would look like. 35% would go to the lead, assuming that they would get 5 points as well. So apart from them actually having the 5 points guaranteed to start off with, they would also have to get awarded by or ranked as number 5 in terms of their productivity throughout the week. That would give them 35%. The secretary and organizer would get 28% and 25% respectively, and normal participants would get 7% and 3%, assuming they got the lowest scores. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is the opposite, assuming that the lead did not do anything throughout the week, was not productive, and only had the 5 points guaranteed that he has. If that's the case, they would only be getting 21.43%. The secretary the same, the organizer 25%, because they also got 3 points awarded to them. So that's where that plays into the whole distribution. The participants would get 14% and 17% based on their participation. So again, these numbers aren't 110% fixed and that it has to be this way. We're open to listening from the community if you guys think these are completely unfair and need to be reworked, and maybe the guaranteed amounts of 5, 4, and 4 need to be maybe brought down a little bit or whatever. We're open to having that conversation. We've also been open, Lenny and myself, been open to that conversation for the last 2 months and haven't heard anything from any delegate at that point. So just letting everyone understand that that's also been the case, and that's why we've arrived at these numbers at this point, and that's what's in the proposal. In another scenario, assuming that we have 10 members in a group, so it would break into two groups of 5. So if that were to be the case, this is what the percentages would look like. 23% would go to the lead out of the issuance to that group. 18% would go to the secretary. 16% would go to the organizer. And this is assuming that they're also ranked as 5. So they also have that both of those points guaranteed at maximums. That being the case, basically the lowest ranking individual in that group would get 2.3%, 5 EOS out of a 250 EOS distribution per week. And assuming the opposite, you would have 13% going to the lead, assuming that they did no work and they simply got a 1 and they had their guaranteed 5. So if that were the case, they'd get 13, pretty much 14%, 11% for the secretary, 14% for the organizer, and the lowest ranked participant would get, or the second lowest ranked participant would get 4%, and so on. So this document will be made available to the community, and you guys can check that out and see with more calm how that plays out. If there are any questions, I'm also willing to take them now or at the end of the...
Open to comments into this document, open to comments, and frozen the first line to not lost the headers. That would be nice. Okay, but that's little details if you want to really understand. Okay,
So
let's go to the next topic maybe.
Yeah, in the interest of time, this is the first time all delegates are seeing that particular spreadsheet, but the details to derive that are in the purpose paper itself.
Correct.
So if it's the first time that you've read the purpose paper and the details of these allocations, then maybe it'll be easier to do that with this spreadsheet at hand. And then maybe there'll be a bunch of questions and clarifications that we need to go through. So maybe in the course of the week or next call.
I would also mention again that some of the delegates have also seen this for about 2 months, where this has been discussed since mid-May, let's say. This has been an ongoing conversation. Lenny and I opened up this proposed form of fund distribution to the community and received feedback at that point in time and carried on with the feedback that we received, which was positive.
Next item is, what category of project do we want on Eden on EOS? So this maybe is a bigger opportunity for conversation. Maybe all of the points that we're going through are big cans of worms that we need to open up and go through somehow together. But this is the idea that the working groups, maybe the incubator working group would have a bigger kind of influence on this, but the community needs to be happy that we're working towards building the kind of ecosystem that can thrive. I don't know how much more simple to make the goal and the role is this kind of a platform perspective. We're not blockchain functionality developers. Maybe Luka is, I don't know. We're not blockchain governance. We're not BPs. We're thinking about blockchain utility, and we're doing that from the lens of Eden on EOS. And we want to be able to support activity that supports the EOS ecosystem. If there are different ways to see it, please add comments into this document so that we can have that conversation. I'm going with the assumption that that generally makes sense to the group. How we do that, that's the question that we're posing in this agenda item, is what category of projects, what kind of projects do we think we might want to focus on? Do we need to narrow the focus so we become specialists in certain areas? Or do we want to go super wide and support every possible type of refi, DeFi, whatever fi that we can squeeze into what we do? That's again the open conversation. Mo, your hand's up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that initially, and for everyone's information, in the purpose paper, this is the responsibility that's designated specifically to the chief delegates to reach consensus on and decide. Given that this election was not entirely, everyone wasn't as well informed of the details of this as maybe they could have been, or it was maybe a little bit out of expectation to expect that from them. But moving into elections in the future, we'd like the delegates to actually already have these kind of things in mind when they're running, so that when they're presenting to their election groups, they can say, I want to prioritize trying to get metaverse projects. I want to prioritize smart cities, or I think that the future is going to be social networking. And each delegate can pose that to their group and see if they can get elected, or if their support in the community initially already coming from them from that end. And it'll build up into the chief delegates already having an idea when they come together of what that direction should be. So right now, Gabriel, myself, and Patrick, we're posing this question to the delegates as well so that we can get input from you guys and where you guys also think, just because this is the situation we're in right now, and this is an opportunity for everyone to come together in offering their ideas on this.
Yeah. Good. And we don't need to decide that right now. Again, this is start opening up the conversation to be had in the channel, in the Telegram, and the inputs. So any other, Patrick, do you have anything on that one? Have we covered that well enough, or
It's
anyone
okay.
else?
It's okay.
Anyone else with comments on this? Keeping it light. We're not getting into the debate. Let's save the debate if there needs to be one for agenda item 7, and then we can open up whatever the can of worms is. But just in terms of the concept, we want to think about what types of projects best serve the community, the EOS ecosystem, and that we could cater to in what we're attempting to support, develop. That's the point. If there's any comments, jump in. Otherwise, we'll move on. Item number 5, technical issues of election.
So I will share my screen, if you can.
Go for it, Patrick.
Yeah, and then we will. Okay, so I do a little intro on that, and then I let Luka Persic comment about all this. So we have the About bot. That's a continuous development like Edenia, that is a partner for us. And the About bot by Luka is also seen as a contractor, a partner for Eden OS, the OS side. And this About bot is very essential. Now the About bot has to do the rotation into Telegram. There are some dependencies with some MSIG to approve and execute of the SBT issuance. And then that will be possible to rotate the permission into Telegram, and then manually to put Gabriel as a owner, because he's the HCD. So I will let Luka jump in. Thank you, Luka, if you can come here, and thank you.
Hi, everyone. Do you hear me right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, we basically prepared a couple of points that we found, what went right, what went wrong. So generally speaking, this was the first, I think, election when bot worked without us needing to, like, I don't know, do anything. So, you know, it was on autopilot. We were just looking at it. If everything is doing, it's all right. So we think it worked quite okay. But yeah, there are always like some improvement points. So what we found first is we kind of want to change the delay. Currently, when you get, for instance, when you get the information that new round is starting, it's like 2 minutes too late. We basically increase the instance, but that's not the only thing that needs to be done. So yeah, a couple of things there. Then the issue is atomic asset API. Atomic asset basically changed from free to paid last season. And we have some dependencies on that. This will be updated very soon. Basically probably tomorrow or in Monday. And then I think it's also we are waiting for SBTs to be issued because they weren't issued, and we cannot know. Bot doesn't know right now who is L1 in these next elections. So once those two issues are resolved, basically the rotation will resume in the Telegram group, and it can be basically all the admins will be replaced that were previously set up by our bot, and also their tags will be updated, so you don't need to mess with that one. What else? Okay, SBT issues. Yeah, okay. So we have like a couple of small issues that we just wanna like make the code less dependent on this atomic asset API. we got some reports from group 5 that was trying to basically jump into the video call, and they were basically jumping in and out. They're closing and opening, and we didn't like test this case. So basically, bot was trying to help them how to start recording all the time because they were closing and opening up. So it was like a little bit too much of messages. So this is like one thing we want to improve. Then we get some issues with basically people got rotating. So the portal didn't work for them for voting, and the way we are doing it in the bot is that you wait till the end, and then 10 minutes before the end you get like notification. You get the button that pre-fills the blocks, and you can vote there. You can vote on the blocks. So in the case the portal doesn't work, and we got the info that it will be better if we can provide it in the meantime, so between elections as well. So we are suggesting that we add this functionality, and yeah, that's basically it. Probably there will be like another bug or two. We are kind of in a connection with Patrick about the payments, if those would be able, if community will be able to put them together. But I think this is like a just overview what needs to happen.
Yeah, and Luka, just to mention, there is no emergency to pay that. You are okay to wait. The most important things now on Monday, that the rotation are made. Us on our side, we have to approve the MSIGs, execute them. There are some dependencies, and I am totally agreeing with those changes. I have already set it into my commitments. That doesn't change anything for me. If there are not enough funds, I will take those funds myself to ensure that Luka Persic as a contractor, as Edenia indeed, on the same level, I would say, there are contractors. That's very important that the upvote bot is in continuous development. And the point 7, very important, because on Tom 6, we made like, let's say, advertising that the upvote bot will guide us to blocks.io and pre-fill the fields all automatically. And yes, he do that, but you have to wait 10 minutes before till the rules.
Yeah. And then there is also like a delay, you know. So when you stack these two issues together, we'll be honest, it's not perfect. Right?
So there will be a command into the bot, a command into the menu to vote. Nice function. Nice function by the upvote bot. That's the goal. And for macOS, you see, and I will share that into our Telegram, this image. macOS for the user, there are 2 possibilities for macOS, and you have to do some check before the election and check your things. Okay, so that's the things of Luka. I'm totally with that. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Luka. Dom, you raise your hand. Is this relating to what we just heard from Luka? Go for it.
Yeah. I just wanted to say real quick, I think we should consider a budget for Luka to work with Haifa for integrations. Upvote bot at Haifa, we've talked about it. We don't want to replicate it at all. It's already built. It's great. We are changing some things so you can import an election afterwards, so that'll be handled, but I don't think Luka should be expected to do that for free.
Yeah.
Right, so Patrick,
I just want to say we stated on last term, Tom 6, 2 phases with Haifa. Import the current state into Haifa, and we know how to do it. Luka has made some research with Sashit and me also. And second phase is to make that Haifa is compatible with the upvote process. So there will be work, and thank you, Dominic, to raise that. Some support for Luka. Thank you.
Perfect segue into our conversation part of this. Again, section 3 is supposed to start to define the working groups. So my imagination is that this should suit the community that everyone who wants to be funded to do something would become part of the relevant working group that is for that something, and specify the stuff you want to do. And then the working group as a circle, as a team, will then prioritize that work, define it, have meetings, have conversations on Telegram, whatever you want to do, and then submit that budget proposal to get that funding, which currently sits with the current chief delegates. That's my imagination. And I'm curious if there is a concern with that picture, because to me, that should fulfill all of the interests of everyone in the community. So with that said, with that trigger point, let's go to, we've got like 13 minutes for open conversation. So please raise your hand with the button if you can help progress this conversation. If no one puts their hand up anytime soon, then okay, so let's start with Mo, just briefly to let everyone else be able to go for it. But Mo, over to you.
I think there's two ways to approach this. I think what Gabriel just proposed is one of them, and maybe both of these ways can work in conjunction. I think part of the solution is also that the chief delegates come up with expectations from the working groups and do an RFP type of situation where they're offering what they want the working groups to contribute back, right? And they can, in that event, allocate the funding according to those expectations. I'm sure that there's a way to combine both of these approaches to reach a more complete addressing of those concerns.
Perfect. That's great. So I'm with you there as well. If no one else is raising a hand, I'm going to invite Dan specifically because you raised issue on the EOS fireside. I want to start just asking, having been in this meeting, how do we approach collating what you see as risks or objections to what you think the current bylaws are intending to do? I wonder, Dan, if you want to be able to share some thoughts.
I'll just turn my camera on, and thanks all for the great and informative meeting so far. Really appreciate all of the work and effort putting into the document and also holding a great meeting. So yeah, I did speak out about that quite a bit on the election day itself, and then also on the fireside chat. And then Gabriel, you had reached out to me yesterday, I think, about asking just if I could summarize a list of concerns of the bylaws. And I just responded to that right before this started, saying that I'm working on a list and working on like a more formal kind of document. I'm also going to be curating some of the stuff that I shared on the recent calls, because I kind of summarized some of it there for anybody who wasn't there. Once a reminder, I made some points that I think that the bylaws, one of them is just that they're too complex. There's too much going on. And one of the things I just shared is in the Eden On EOS community group, in the general chat, and I believe the strategy chat where you asked me about that, I shared a link to an article about credible neutrality and column McGraw complexity. These are ideas. Credible neutrality is a really great foundational concept for mechanism design, and it's really helpful I recommend everybody in the Eden community who's interested in learning the best ways to like design our systems to check out. It was a paper written by Vitalik Buterin a few years ago, and it's a really insightful paper. And a few of the major points that he was making was basically keep it simple. Perry made some great points about this in the chat too. Basically, when you have so many things going on that even like really committed members of Eden like me, who've been like constantly working at Eden for the past 2 years, like don't have a chance to read everything like very particularly. Like when I was an Eden chief delegate, I was very particular about trying to limit the amount of changes that we were making and like just propose a little bit, because it's a big community. People have lots of different ideas. It's difficult to get consensus. Like it's best to keep messages as simple as possible. So that's one major point, that there's so much going on in the bylaws, and for new people or for people who are more like committed, in either case, it's a lot to keep up with. And every time that you have an additional thing, it's opportunity, or I guess the opposite of an opportunity. It's the potential for some corruption to seek in, or some misalignment to seek in, or some misinterpretation to seek in that can be used. Like the main idea of the credible neutrality paper is like keep the system incredibly neutral, keep it simple so everybody can be on the same page, and it's not like open to interpretation for some community or party to abuse it in some way. So that was one of the points. I'm also concerned too about the legal liability possibilities. Like I joined Eden mostly like for the ideas about like cooperating, and I'm really excited about social games and how we can make like really fun experiences and stuff like that. But a lot of the stuff, like I'm a huge fan of doing like financial things to grow projects, incubating projects and stuff like that. But also there is some legal things to consider there as well. Like there is more attention focused on that kind of thing in like legal places. And I know several people have voiced that concern. Like I remember Lisa had mentioned she wasn't feeling comfortable being on the call, being that she's a United States citizen last term. I think Chris Barnes and Waxa, two prior chief delegates, also expressed concerns about some of the terminology, like being a general partner and investments and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of changes from the original part. It's kind of confusing with the credible neutrality stuff. I've shared an article about that. And then there's the legal liability stuff too. And I suppose that's kind of a high level overview. And I can also share a more concise and well organized article, hopefully this week, that can break down those points more. And I'm happy to also discuss, answer questions or discuss outside of this meeting or later in this meeting too. And I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thank you, Gabriel.
I understand the general concern of complexity. Have you, because I understand maybe until, I think even on the election, or was it the fireside, I don't know, but you said you hadn't read through the bylaws and that they were too long. It's hard to find that balance. If you're writing something about the bylaws, does that include having read the bylaws, or are you not reading them because you look at it and you just think that's just too long and therefore you're not even interested to read it?
So I've read it at various times, and I'm not sure when the latest version is. So for example, when it was first released, or when it was first released in kind of like a beta stage, and then I saw Chris Barnes made a lot of comments to it, I read it pretty closely there. I didn't read it all thoroughly, and so I would like to reread it more. But at that time, I agree with a lot of Chris's comments that, Chris made like probably 100 comments or more. So I'd like to read it more, and I'm planning to read it more. I see people talk about Notion too. I agree with Notion too, James and Gabriel, about that. It could be really helpful. But yeah, I'm planning to read it more, but it was just kind of overwhelming at the time. I probably spent like an hour or two going through it one time, and then have been listening to all the calls and stuff otherwise, but I haven't taken the time yet to thoroughly read through all parts of it. So that's something I should do this week probably.
Okay, so have you said, I think you also said recently that you're kind of ish full-time on EOS and related stuff. So whether it's part-time, like you're in the meetings, you're fully committed, and we all see that you've been present for like a lot of time. Taking a couple of hours doesn't sound like a lot of time to have to go through a significant strategic proposal for the Eden community. So I'm just curious. What I'd suggest, Mo, I think, is going to make commenting available on that long document. If all of us, anyone interested, can get in there, read through, if you're like, depending on how interested you are, maybe it's fine. You agree the general consensus of the group, and you just want us to get on with doing stuff, and that's great. Don't worry about going through and adding comments. If you do feel that you have concerns, then maybe we can invite everyone to be able to go in and add specific comments to specific areas in the bylaws where you identify risk or concern. Dan, you got your hand up, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. And yeah, it sounds great. So I think that's an excellent way to do it. Have it like modular like that, where I can write comments and everybody else can do so as well. I see Chris is asking, can we use the doc that's already been commented on? Yes, I'm curious about that too, what version we should. And also, I think this document was also shared too, so if we have it well organized and then just clearly share which ones would be the best to comment on it, then I'd appreciate that. And then you just provide a bit of clarity. I am working well over full time in EOS and in Eden and Web3 and stuff like that. And I am just like super busy because I'm trying to, like, I'm also hosting the Eden Fractal and the Alien Worlds Fractal and Eden Town Hall and all these different things. So it is not easy for me to be able to like read something for 2 or 3 hours. I'll do my best to do so, but that is a consideration. And then also for new members too, like we want to invite new people. I saw Dominic said there's about 60 people in the community, so that's not a big community, but it also is a huge community by some standards. I mean, it really depends how you relate it, but like we want to grow it so there's like hundreds or thousands of people who can join this Eden on EOS and other Edens on other Edens and other communities as well. So on an onboarding strategy, like expecting people to read a 2 or 3 page or take 2 or 3 hours to read is also a concern as well.
So let's park this. I've only got the 4 minutes left on the call. I need to leave. Maybe you guys are going to carry on, up to you, and we'll continue this conversation. We publish video. Yeah, I just don't see the issue with making people read, like spend 2 or 3 hours and understand. We're a significant, strategically focused organization that needs to achieve difficult goals. And if membership is restricted by people that are able to take two hours to read a document and understand it and understand what they're getting into, maybe that's part of the assumed criteria of the quality of people that we need to get into the community. They have to have time and space and mental acuity and whatever it takes. I don't like the look of that document. I think it's edited in like it looks like a legal contract, and I don't want to read it. So maybe we can find a more creative way of communicating this stuff. Add some, like in my document here that I screen share, I add colors to headings and space things out as much as I can. Maybe we turn it into a slide deck. Maybe we turn it into animated videos or something, just to explain the role opportunities that people have. That could be a wonderful project for the working groups to think about. So it's just finding that balance. I don't want to take up I've got 2 minutes left. Patrick. So my point is, we're opening up this conversation, and I've recorded that in this assumptions and risks. What I've heard is 2 things: liabilities as a VC, we need to understand that, and length and complexity of the bylaws.
Yeah, we have 7 minutes. Yeah.
And we can continue to add to this list and add comments into the purpose paper, the bylaws, and continue to discuss and see what we can achieve. Can I just quickly
say that the bylaws, I'm going to repeat this for, I don't know how many times I've already said this. The bylaws are the bylaws. The purpose paper and the dispute resolution were not meant to be part of the bylaws. We had to put them in because we can only submit 1 document. What was meant for this election to happen was for the community to show its commitment behind the vision and approve it as a whole, which it did. Now it's on us as the new set of chief delegates, with the articles that we've already put into these bylaws, that allow us to ratify these, and immediately afterwards, if that's the way that we choose to do it, maybe a week afterwards, go ahead and break it into 3 different documents and just have the bylaws that's going to be a page and a half. If that's all you need to read, that's all you need to read. But the bylaws will reference the purpose paper, will reference the dispute resolution process, and it'll all be there in conjunction, but the bylaws will actually only be a page and a half. One other thing that I just really like to say is, for people that came into an organization based on governance, if you don't like to read, you have a problem. I'm sorry. It doesn't work any other way. People have been asking me to upload the video. That's an easy example. Please find in the bylaws where it says, in the current bylaws that still are the active bylaws, please find there where it says that I need to upload that video.
I also noticed no one had uploaded their video in Dan's room either, so I asked Dan if you could upload the video in your.
So if you guys want us to put that in the new bylaws, or if you guys would like that in the bylaws, that requires us to put words into text, and that requires that you read those words. That makes the document longer. There's no other way to do it.
Yes.
Sorry to be so blunt.
Gabriel, can you go to the item 6, please? Because
on the agenda.
Yes.
By wire will interview the CDs. Cool, we got it. I need to drop off, but I really want to hear a comment from Chris. You got your hand up, so maybe last words from Chris. On my side, I'll have to drop off after that. Go for it.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about Mo's comment, that you had no other option but to include the purpose paper and the extended dispute resolution in the bylaws to be ratified as one thing. We, in term 4 to 5, I think, the proposed bylaws included a bunch of links to external referenceable documents. So the bylaws remained clean, succinct, with changes that are specific rules that we follow, that new members should read and understand. And to Dan's point, like, what new member is going to read 32 pages and then confidently attest on a video call that they've read and understood all those. I mean, good luck, personally. But anyway, so there was referenceable documents. So you could have done that, Mo. So I don't think that's quite accurate to say that. You could have created documents and referenced a purpose paper and referenced an extended dispute resolution. And then they don't have to actually be line for line ratified as bylaws, because bylaws hold a very specific legal term. And by including all of that, they are part of the bylaws. Like, you can't have it both ways, unfortunately.
What we wanted to do, like I said, was to get that commitment from the community. The community was willing to commit to the bylaws as they were proposed. That means with the purpose paper and with the dispute resolution. So they're in agreement with that whole document, with that whole vision. That's what we wanted. So that's why it was proposed that way.
Yes. So
You could have achieved that though by referencing. So just to say, you could have achieved that same thing by referencing those documents, and you could still have gotten the buy-in.
All right. So there was a different,
a significant commitment. It wouldn't have been a significant enough. I think people would still have felt like there's more leeway. And
yeah, difference of opinion on that one. Great conversation. I feel like we just opened up. I have to drop off. Maybe you guys are going to continue, and I'll catch you all again very, very soon to continue. See you later.
I had my hand raised since a while, and I want to make some comment about Dancing Joy in particular. So Dancing Joy, you are a delegate level 1 on this term. So even before to say that those bylaws are too complex, 32 page, and that you have repeated in long and in circle, you are now a delegate level 1. So we have a document published now where the delegate level 1 have already made their interest. So if you are really interested into Eden On EOS on this term 7 to contribute in working groups and be funded for what you want to do and focus, show your bullet point into the document. That's the place to go. So just want to tell that. That's the same for every delegate level 1. Show your interest, show your commitment, not only the column say what you want to do, feel also the column commitment. Otherwise, that's just words. So to be very clear.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Patrick. I have that on my to-do list, and I'll do it as soon as I can, and appreciate that motivation.
Otherwise, what's the point to be a delegate level 1, by the way?
Well, I could bring up other points as well, but I agree that as a good initiative, and I'll do that. Another comment I'll make too. So I'm in no way I'm against reading. Like, I read a lot, and I also write a lot too, and I encourage people to read and write helpful things. But yeah, like Chris said, I mean, it's partially just wanting to be inviting for new members. And I saw Dominic, and there was a couple comments about, like, Dominic said this is supposed to be 20% of the pre rule, not 80% of the rule, and this isn't supposed to be some big open groupers for the most active people. And I mean, I agree to some extent that, like, part of the idea with Eden when we first started, when Dan Larimer started, was like, invite your closest friends, people you really trust and stuff like that. And I agree, like, we should be a really tight-knit group. But at the same time, we want to, like, design systems that can power all communities and build templates and stuff that other communities can use. And so, like, it's very simple things. Like, for example, we do at Eden Fractal. Like, we have so much writing, so much documentation, but really people can learn what we're doing in, like, just reading the very basic welcome guide. And, like, here's the rules of the game. People can learn it in like 3 to 5 minutes and stuff like that. And so it is helpful to think about from an onboarding experience, just how can we simplify it as much as possible? And to that point too about reading stuff, I'm not sure if Patrick, Mo, Lenny, Gabriel, the people who were on the Eden On EOS calls that we had last week or last session, last season, last term, where I shared the credible neutrality article or this so far, but there's a lot of writing there, and the article isn't super well curated right now. I just kind of took screenshots of my conversation with James Mart, as well as screenshots of Vitalik Buterin's articles and some videos. But I'd encourage the same to you guys to take some time to read that because it's got some really helpful wisdom. And so I'll certainly read the bylaws and make comments and look forward to that. And I hope that you'll also read some of that wisdom from pioneers like Vitalik, who are encouraging people to keep as simple as possible, and looking forward to collaborating.
We have to be honest here. If we have delegate level 1 during this term, Nicola, others, do the work, are going into working group and work. That's the goal. And are also okay to distribute part of their funds to the working group. That's like a mutual funds, by the way. Into Eden Fractal, we have also a mutual fund, just constituted of me and Dan, by the way. And there are more than 32 pages into Eden Fractal to read when you want to understand something. That's very complex, by the way. So it's not about complicate. Complex, that's different than complicate. That's two words different. So if you want really pay attention and read the bylaw, you understand. If you want really to read the purpose paper, you understand. The DPR, you have not even to read that. You can read at an abstract level. We stated that into the other calls. We stated that also on the, on other calls, we stated that many times to you, that you can read at an abstract level and not go into every detail. And this document, we have the chance to separate them because that was changed during term 6 by Mo and Lenny, the article 4A. So, but you have not to remember all those things. I was on every call. And also joining the Eden Fractal the most that I could. But yeah, I will give the mic to Mo.
Yeah, I just wanted to give Chris a chance if you wanted to say something else.
Chris, yeah, totally.
And also just to say that we're not going to have a 2-hour-long delegate meeting here. It's not going to be, we usually have a habit of wrapping it up within an hour. So let's kind of maintain that that rule.
Yeah, we
Chris,
have just 3 minutes more than the hour. That's not a painful. That's okay. Thank you to respect the time and respect the time of the people. So, Chris, you want to say?
I think I accidentally had my hand raised, so no, I have nothing else to add. Sorry. Okay.
Okay. Well, from my end, then I did want to add something. I just wanted to remind all the delegates that what we did commit to, and that's why the bylaws were proposed in the manner that they were, is that we will be donating 75% of the funds received this term to the working group circles and the fractal delegate meetings. So it's going to be divided amongst those two. I hope that everyone that ran as a delegate understood that that was part of the commitment as what it was mentioned before we broke out into the election rooms, and we'll honor that commitment that was made there. So I just want to remind you guys that that is expected, and that will help us determine on how the funding for the circles pans out.
That's the whole idea of this term. Nicolas?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, I just want to jump in to ask if it is mandatory, those working group. And so this commitment that you just talked about, Mo, is mandatory as well, even though it's expected, because there are two different words, you know. I know if there is edge cases or exceptions, and the reason why I'm asking is because, yeah, I just want to dedicate all these funds to what I said in the meeting video. Patrick knows what I'm talking about with Liz Parker.
Yeah, totally.
So I can make a presentation to everyone and explain why maybe it's better to just allocate all the funds to this and make particular case for my case. I don't know if it's possible. If it's not, it's okay. So yeah, that's just that.
Really don't hear more about that.
We could likely maybe schedule that at a different time or talk about that and see if we can do something about that.
Yeah.
But let me answer your question about the working groups and participating in those. I believe in the purpose paper, it states that what's expected is that delegates participate in at least one meeting in a circle per month. So that's what the expectation is there.
Okay.
More than anything, the idea behind that is also to have the delegates understand and be part and maintain the culture of the circles and the working groups, and at the same time be able to make sure that these circles and working groups are being effective and productive and deserving of the funds that they're receiving, kind of keeping them honest per se. So checks and balances.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, totally. So 4 minutes more, and then we wrapping up. I think I give to Dan. He has other question concern. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted clarification. So one of the reasons why I had a difficult time reading the bylaws before was like there were several different like versions it seemed like, and when you had to request access and stuff, and I'm not sure totally which one is the final one. So sorry if that's my mistake for just getting confused trying to catch it up. It's also quite confusing with the Eden On EOS group with all of the different like channels. So I sometimes just I'm trying my best to keep up with there. But I saw Dwayne posted the link for the bylaws, and that has a bunch of comments. And I'm wondering, to Chris's point, is this the best place to make comments, or is there a different Google document that is better to make comments on when I want to read it and read the most final version?
I'll let Lenny take that one. I think you wanted to answer it.
Yeah, just very short. It started out as the 3 different documents we normally refer to: the core bylaw, purpose paper, dispute resolution, 3 separate documents. Then they were combined in the end when we have worked through them as one long document, and that's been posted on IPFS, Google, etc., etc. But I agree, it could be easily to mistake. But if one go for the latest documents from that end and look, it should be all right to find. Or bylaws proposal. I think before election, it was one of the last entries because we tried to actually make the relevant documents be easy access for anyone who haven't been around that much. Thanks.
I just want to add to that, and I will publish again for the 20th time. There is a mind map pointing to the bylaws. Only one version, that's the Google Doc, and open to. That will be open to comments, right, Mo? You will make open to comments. So everything you will find, and I think we will pin also the messages like this. You will see, and I think there is no really an excuse to not follow the things. I think it's more about to be focused on some things. But if you have too much things to do at the same time, I think you cannot have the best experience possible. That's my point.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Lenny. So just to confirm, is the easiest place to find the bylaws that I should read and comment on, is that Dwayne's link right there, or should I check the mind map or a pin post?
Since the 23rd of July, 2 weeks before, that's the document that's been posted various places. So yeah, it's easy enough. Go into Eden community, look up the bylaw proposal, and you'll find it. It's quite easy. Or if there was a link, I didn't notice it.
Yeah, Dwayne shared a link in the chat, and I see term 6 for bylaw proposal. All right, so I guess it's pinned there, and so I'll find it there, I suppose. But I'm so curious if Dwayne's is the final link.
Yeah, I got that straight from the bylaw working group. So it was the last post from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the last.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we should start wrapping it up and keep the conversation going, as I like to say, on the Telegram channels. That's what it's meant for. This conversation is meant to end here and engage the rest of the community.
Yeah, and we're wrapping up. You know how we're wrapping up? We raise our hand and we say 3, 2, 1, 0, go Eden On EOS. 3, 2, 1, 0. Go Eden On EOS.
Eden On EOS.
Go Eden EOS.
See you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
And of course, someone was muted. Thank you. Bye-bye.